Call in the air. I'll tell you at the end. There are two sides to every story, and just like this coin, each side is different. Tottenham also has something in common here with this coin, because they will have two sides to them this season, in my opinion. But what are they, and how will they get both in their way and out of their way, and give them a throughway next season? Pre-season can always be a good indicator of how a team is looking to play, especially when they've got a new manager. This pre-season has been particularly interesting from a Spurs point of view, as they've already showed some fascinating tactical insights. And we're going to be the first to tell you what they are, but we're also going to tell you what that big gaping problem is with all of it as well. So this is the first side Ange Postecoglou put out as a game against West Ham. They actually lost the game, but there were some good elements of it, which we'll talk about in just a second. And it kind of looks like a 4-2-3-1, but actually Maddison was kind of playing as a second striker, and they had a lot of possession in this game as well. And what was really obvious was that it actually kind of became a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-4, Maddison playing a lot higher up the pitch. And in particular, the right-hand side was something to keep an eye on, because it was quite asymmetric. If I have a look at the average positions here, you can see, and the arrow's pointing down here, Tottenham are shooting down on these average positions. You can see Kulusevski really high, trying to get himself into the box, whereas Solomon on the other side staying that little bit wider and deeper. Same goes for Pedro Porro, much higher up the pitch. Reguilon staying a lot deeper as well. So that asymmetric approach was clearly there for all to see. And there was a duality, I think, to the wingers here that I think could be really useful for other players. If you think of that directness and that ability to be in the box in terms of his heat map here, Dejan Kulusevski, flip that over and put it on the side where Son would be. Son could certainly do that, and that would help him fit into this squad. And the same goes probably for someone like Ivan Perisic, who hasn't got that same kind of pace and energy, and actually want him out wide putting those crosses in. Harry Kane was really, really interesting in this game. He dropped deep a little bit more often than I think you would expect from a Postecoglou side, but of course it's early days. But what was interesting was that he actually only had 24 touches, which was the second least of any outfield player in this game. Another player that I want to talk about, because it was just so interesting. There's so much to learn during pre-season. This is something that we touched on in the 8th video. It's called, Is Pep Guardiola Controlling the Premier League? If you haven't gone and seen that video, go and check it out. We're really proud of it. And we're kind of putting forward this prophecy that the season is going to be about the 8s, but it's much more complicated than that. So go check it out. And Oliver Skipp kind of is part of this, because he plays in the midfield. And what's really fascinating here is that Tottenham had 72% possession, but Oliver Skipp only had 16 touches. Now, this may not make sense at first, but it could actually be genius at the same time. Now, sorry to keep bringing everything back to Pep, but I do think, you know, a lot of managers have learnt a lot from him, and in particular, someone like Ange Postecoglou certainly keeps tabs on him with his career and the way that he likes to play. And I wonder if he's trying to turn Skipp into stones. You know, I think it's one of those ones where they say, people in glass skips shouldn't throw stones, so don't get angry at me for talking about Guardiola again. But it does seem to have a lot of influence on other people. What I'm trying to say is this is something to keep an eye on, as it looks like it may allow Bissouma to dominate the midfield. Stones, when he played, if you watch games, he was kind of out of the way a lot of the time. Yep, there were moments where he would come and he would recycle the ball to different players. Of course he would. And he would be that double pivot, and he had the quality to do that if he was needed. And actually, even in that Champions League final, he went and played higher up the pitch to get other players out of the way and make them focus on them defensively, but also give that single pivot normally with the ball that time to dominate the game. And that's what might happen with Bissouma, who was fantastic in this game. But the coin, Jim, what about the coin? What's the relevancy to the coin? Well, I hear you ask that, and well, they completely changed their system in the second half. And what was really interesting here is that it completely changed the game. And what you have here is that you've got a very clear philosophy in terms of what Postecoglou wants to do. He wants to be attacking, he wants to dominate the ball, he often kind of wants to work around the sides. But also, you have versatility. In the first half, all that focus down that right-hand side. In the second half, incredibly different. Lo Celso really involved, Udogie, and Perisic as well, playing a lot higher up the pitch. Football was a funny old game, and for so many years now, Harry Kane has been so integral. But as we have said from the start, since Postecoglou came in, there is a possibility that with this system, it doesn't totally suit Harry Kane. And Richarlison, despite being nowhere near the level of Harry Kane, and in fact, being described by a friend of mine who's a Spurs fan as a donkey, we could be living in a world where Harry Kane isn't as necessary as he once was because of the style of play that they want to put forward. And we have to touch on Richarlison in particular because his movement really improved this team. Defensively, Richarlison offered a hell of a lot. He is a nuisance. He does work hard. He does have that mobility, and he is a kind of a proper striker. Isn't too bothered with dropping deep and getting on the ball, kind of wants to work hard for the team. And defensively, that helped to sort of push back the defence of West Ham. It also helped him in terms of man marking for the press. He was often doing that. But in particular, he stayed high. That was the big thing here. He also stopped to negate the midfield a lot of the time with the press and the hard work that he did. But if we have a look at his average position and his heat map, that speaks volumes to me because he was able to stay higher up the pitch and importantly played on the shoulder throughout. Let me show you a screenshot that really shows it. And by doing that, what he does is he keeps these guys kind of honest and further away. Now, someone like Lo Celso has options now. He can play a pass out wide. There's very little pressure on him really, but he can drive with the ball as well if he wants to into this space, but also of course he can play that pass into Richarlison. And in particular, I'm going to try and zoom in here, the body language of Richarlison. Now Harry Kane might do that exact same element of movement, but I think he might not be there in the first place. I think he'd be more likely to be dropping into these kind of spaces or here looking for that pass. And then previously you would have had someone like Heung-min Son, that wasn't Heung-min Son, but Heung-min Son in that position trying to make those runs in behind, which is fine, but this is not how Postecoglou is going to play. That player in Richarlison and the profile of which he plays, where he's ready and willing and able and desperate to get into these areas here, that's really helpful for Tottenham, and they look so much better in the second half. And if this is the system, then this is the future, and again kind of adds weight to the idea that quite possibly now is the time to move on from Harry Kane and get as much money as you can. Final thing I wanted to focus on was these three players, Udogie, Perisic and Lo Celso, because I think those three could become very important to this squad and to Tottenham this season, which I think is quite a surprise for a lot of people this year. So we've spoken a lot about the good side of it. Now let's talk about the other side of the coin, which is that Tottenham so far seem about soft as a children's play area. Two of the goals were from set pieces, poor crosses, and it was weak play. And in particular, the body language wasn't right. The defensive desire wasn't really there. That is a massive problem because you can get yourself into great positions and have great possession and create great chances. But if you give away soft goals, hardened teams are going to hurt you. West Ham, it was a great example of that. But if you think of this goal in particular, for me, it was weak as piss. I've got to be honest. The fact that Danny Ings has the ability, the opportunity, the time to score a header at the back post is absolutely rubbish. It's rubbish. They put the cross in. There he is at the back stick, and just the desire wasn't there. The ability to see the problem that is going on there as well is not there. And that is a massive alarm bell for them. They could easily score 70 goals this season and concede 70 goals this season. The body language is all wrong for Tottenham as well. Kulusevski doesn't get tight enough for the first goal. Also, if you look at the eyes of all of these players, they're all just focusing on the ball instead of focusing on the West Ham defenders that are on their way. Mabama is able to then ghost in and get himself a goal. It's about being touch tight. It's about being difficult. It's about having that defensive nous. It's about sensing that danger that doesn't seem to be there. And for the third goal as well, that is a massive concern, I think, when it comes to how open this team is going to be. You see the ability for West Ham to get through that midfield press. And once they do, that causes all sorts of problems. First of all, Davinson Sanchez, he gets squared up. And when he's squared up, it then makes it so easy, so easy for JaackMaate to make just a really simple channel run. You know, he's not known for that really, but I mean, regardless of that, the space that there is to work with in terms of those two defenders, one's on his way back, one's even behind him. You've got there's so much space in behind the fullback area as well. But also, if you had another player on his way, then that would have been a massive issue as well. If this West Ham player or a different team was making a driving run and start with a higher position, okay, maybe you might be pinned back. But there's so much space, there's so many gaping areas in terms of the two centre-backs that I think this could be a massive, massive problem for Tottenham, because you're going to be able to cut through them so easily. There still needs to be a lot of recruitment for Postecoglou, because it feels like there's a bit of a drop-off when it comes to the squad players, because he is moving from a squad that worked sort of with a back three to a team that now he wants to play with fullbacks who bomb on, or one of them at least, and a back four as well. And you can kind of see that in the squad here. Look, Maddison, Hill hasn't worked at Tottenham. Lo Celso, I think, could have a real part to play this season. On the left-hand side, that little bit more quality, but not the same level of those top six sides that you're looking to battle with. Richarlison and Kane, it seems like just those two up top at the moment. Midfield is solid. It's got numbers there, but it's going to be a big season for Basuma. Bentancur needs to come back as well. Porro needs a big season to offer up something different to someone like Emerson, but they have got that versatility of the two. But in particular, it's the centre-back position, I think, that just needs so much work. So it's going to be an absolute roller coaster for Tottenham. The Harry Kane thing as well is going to be part of this over the next month. In terms of a roller coaster, and it's going to be one of those ones that go whoosh, wow, wow, yeah, instead of that one like Conte, it was like one pole and it goes boop, 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 boop. That is a rubbish roller coaster. It'll be a better roller coaster. It's going to be more fun. However, you're playing Brentford, first game in the season. Brentford will know what they're up to. They will be solid. They will be resolute, as you saw at the back end of last season. And if you're not good to go, and there isn't that fluency in that system, it could be tricky, but it could be bloody good fun as well. So as I said, it could be a Jekyll and Hyde season for Tottenham this year, and more important than that, it was a tails